This video is brought to you by my Discord and my Blue Sky. Check the links down in the description below. Danny, how are you feeling about this? Are you excited, or do you have any input for this?
I'm not in the death battle community at all. I actually didn't know who you were before today.
That's okay. Hey, what's going on, you guys, and welcome back to That's a Wrap. My name is the Raptor, and this is our podcast. Joining us on the podcast today, we have one of our lovely Discord moderators, Sakinator, who we have not seen since the Omni-Man vs. Bardock and Joker vs. Giorno review, which at this point is a long time ago. So yeah, long time no see. How you doing, Sak?
Raptor is keeping me here for ransom. Please, someone pay $50,000. Give me the fuck out.
Literally everybody makes that joke. I'm so sick of it. Why does everyone do that?
Joke.
It's not a joke.
It's
okay, that's
true.
why.
Please let me go.
Yeah, that's why. Also joining us today, returning from the trivia quiz podcast episode that we did, actually winning that episode, so congrats to you. We have your Nemesis, one of our event managers for the server. How you doing, Nem?
Yeah, I'm pretty good.
What the fuck was that?
I really think the long pause adds to that.
Yeah, no, I agree, but what? Anything else you want to say, Nemesis, add to your introduction, or is that all?
No.
Bruh. Okay, and then last up, joining us for the first time, we have one of our many server members, Danny. How you doing, Danny?
I'm good. I woke up literally a minute before this started, so I'm not all there yet, but I should be good.
Oh, we'll wake you up. We will be sure to wake you up, no problem. So yeah, this is the podcast that we do on the channel where we talk about Death Battle, review Death Battles, do all of that fun stuff. Again, some of these guys have been on the show before. And today we are reviewing the rematch of Legends, or at least the rematch of 2025. Master Chief from Halo versus the Doomslayer from Doom. And we're going to be sharing our opinions, saying, you know, anything that we think about the episode. I have way more notes about this than I expected to. I thought, if anything, this was just going to be a very quick thing because I also haven't really talked about this matchup much on the channel before. I thought this was going to be very similar, but I actually have a lot of very specific things I want to get into. And of course, you know, we're all going to have differing opinions. I'm sure everyone listening is going to have differing opinions as well. If you want to share any of your opinions on anything that we talked about or anything that we didn't talk about, feel free to leave them in the comments. I always love reading your comments. But yeah, with that out of the way, I think we are good to go. Is everyone excited?
No.
Woohoo!
Wow, yeah, great support, guys. I really appreciate it. Yeah, no,
We love matchup.
you know, I am personally very excited to talk about this. So starting off with the initial thoughts, because like I've tried to make the initial thoughts like a section of these videos before, and I think for this one it's actually even more important to talk about because obviously the inception of this episode came from the rematch poll, and you know, a lot of people had very specific things to say about what won the rematch poll or what they wanted to win, but then we also have just the idea of this as a rematch in a vacuum, or the idea of this as a matchup in a vacuum. So I'm kind of interested in hearing, does anyone have any opinions on if they wanted something else to win the rematch poll, or what they thought about the matchup in general?
I think it was pretty much inevitable. Out of all of the rematch options, I feel Master Chief versus Doomslayer is one that absolutely benefited from getting a proper run back, because it's been like a decade since the last episode, and even more exemplified by the fact that back then he wasn't even called Doomslayer, he was called Doom Guy.
And even that was pretty colloquial. It wasn't even like official to the game. It was just what everyone called him.
Right,
Yeah.
but like, especially given the fact that both have gotten some new games, a lot of new stuff to take into account. Like, I'm not saying like any of the other options were not as viable. This one is like the big one that could have benefited from like a modern redo.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Well, I definitely think a lot of people share your opinions because obviously this is the episode that won the rematch poll. It was the one that most people wanted. And yeah, a lot of people have wanted updated analyses for both of these characters, especially Doomslayer, but for both of these characters, a lot of people did want to see that. So, yeah, I definitely think you're in good company with that.
Going into this, I have to agree with Sak. It was going to happen eventually because it's an old one, very old. You know, the debate is it's changed a bit.
Something like that.
And yeah, something like that. As much as I would have liked to see something like the TMNT Battle Royale or Mewtwo versus Shadow, the big one on there. I think this was the right one to go with overall.
Okay, fair enough. And Danny, how about you? Because I know you're a big Halo guy, so I'm curious what you thought about this. Is this how you wanted to see Master Chief come back, or maybe you would have preferred something else? What are your thoughts?
I'm not a member of the Death Battle community, so I don't really know much about anything.
Okay.
So I haven't really seen Chief in anything else. So I think it was okay personally.
Okay, yeah, great. For me, I've been kind of outspoken about my opinions on this episode happening, so I do completely agree that this is the one that was going to happen. It was the biggest rematch that people have been talking about in this community, except like Goku versus Superman. It's the one where it's like, if any episode is going to have this huge backing that's, rooted in history, then it's going to be Master Chief versus Doomslayer. This was not the rematch that I wanted, though, personally. I do understand the idea of wanting to take an old episode, an episode that a lot of people disagree with, or that, has changed a lot for the characters, and just wanting to try it again. As I've said before, though, I do not think that a rematch is always the best way to do that. I think that you can just put the characters in a completely new matchup, and you can get that same result where you give them a better analysis. And I kind of just feel like they should have done that here. I know there is the argument that, like, okay, well, then who do you put the characters up against? But I don't know, at least something where the debate is actually not non-existent, especially since we're revisiting this. It's like, I feel like you need a really good reason to do specifically a rematch, or Death Battle needs to fix their own past mistakes. But this is literally just a matter of the characters changing, so I feel like you could have just slapped the characters in different matchups that are more appropriate to them for how they have changed, and I honestly feel like it would have been better for that. Am I off the mark by saying that? Because this is something I've reiterated a few times before.
I don't think so. I do believe that each character has a bit better, though more so Chief.
Okay, fair enough.
If he was going to come back, I know some people wanted him to fight Samus. I'm not really sure how that would have done in comparison to a Doomslayer run back, so I'm glad this is the option they went with.
Okay, yeah, I mean, from a certain character perspective, I can understand, for the matchups that they had, maybe this is the matchup that you wanted in general, so I can totally get that. I just feel like the main reason why people voted for this as the rematch, you didn't need a rematch to achieve that goal, and because of that, I feel like there were other episodes on the rematch poll that maybe were more deserving, where Death Battle could rectify their own past mistakes. Because for this one, again, yeah, you can say that Death Battle got it wrong for the time if you wanted to, but the biggest reason why people wanted it is because the characters themselves have changed, not because particularly Death Battle has changed their scaling methods or anything like that. But I don't blame people, because again, it did win the rematch poll, so naturally most people did really want it. And I was still looking forward to the production prospects, obviously, but there were things about this matchup that bugged me that were going to stick with me regardless of whether or not the episode itself was good. And some people may say that's a little unfair, because it's like, why are you judging an episode's quality by the matchup if the episode is really well done? And I do think that is fair to a degree, but I also don't think that the episode quality is the only thing that you can possibly criticize. I think it's important to make the distinction, and that's what I'm trying to do right now, but I think that the matchup itself is also fair to criticize. Even if I think the episode was well made, I still think that's a perfectly fair thing to do.
Yeah, I feel roughly the same about that.
And then there was one other thing I want to say before we actually start talking about the episode. I was kind of like on strike for this matchup. Like I purposefully avoided talking about the debate itself in the prediction very much. I didn't even talk about it much in my reaction video, and that was totally on purpose because I knew that there was like nothing else to talk about for this matchup. Because it was talked about in the community so much, I knew that no one had anything else that they wanted to say about it. Like, all of the discussion was basically done. And then wouldn't you know it, the waiting period for this matchup, people would talk about anything and everything that was not the matchup itself or the debate itself. So I felt so fucking validated when that happened, because it just proved to me that, yeah, I was right. No one wants to talk about this. Like, there is nothing left to talk about that has not already been said. So that was another reason why I kind of felt like this just seems a little pointless for all the rematches you can do.
One of the saddest waiting periods, definitely.
Yeah.
No one talked about it. And
Yeah.
if there was talk about it, it was small talk.
But I think with that, we can actually talk about the episode. So starting with the animation. Danny, we'll start with you. What did you think about the animation for this one?
I thought the animation was really cool. The style felt really fitting for Doom and Halo.
Mm-hmm. Well, the 3D style, obviously, they needed to do this in 3D.
Yeah.
If they didn't, then it just would have been a really bad idea. And you thought it felt like fluid enough, because obviously you have the models, you have the set pieces. Sometimes with the 3D episodes, there is the complaint was like, oh, it feels a little janky, not super fluid. But you thought it all came together well?
I'm an animator myself, so I might see it differently.
Okay.
But for what it is, I thought that it was pretty decent, and I don't have many issues with it.
Well, with you being an animator, yeah, I definitely think you can bring a unique perspective to that. So if there's anything else you want to chime in with later, obviously, you can go right ahead. Nemesis, how about you? What did you think about the animation itself?
With this being the, third DevilArtemis animated death battle, I had some mixed feelings going in. And yeah, I've been very mean about it here and there. So I was very much hoping to be proven wrong with this one, and I think I was.
Okay.
I mean, it's not perfect. There's definitely some jank and some stretch here and there. But overall, I think it looked pretty neat. The lighting was good. Certain shots looked pretty cool, especially the ending one.
Yeah, oh yeah. Well, that was you kind of have to, especially if Doomslayer wins, you kind of have to end it like that with the whole Doom, Ash Williams sort of energy with all the demons and just being so badass, I guess. Yeah, you definitely
It's really kick ass.
Yeah, you definitely need that in there. So A+ decision for that.
It was just overall really good. There were some weird shots. Like, I didn't necessarily like the Doomslayer running to catch the rocket scene.
Okay.
Felt a bit over the top.
I mean, I think
it looked nice.
That was supposed to be, I guess, a very specific callback to Doomslayer can outrun a rocket. Let's show how that looks, how that would actually look. Even though you see him moving a lot faster than I think you physically see Doomslayer move in his game. So I can understand it looking a little odd.
It looks a bit odd, and I felt... And
Something
followed by
that-
one of the funniest falling animations from Chief ever.
Oh, yeah.
Something that kind of bothered me about the rocket running scene, that's something that Chief does in the book.
Okay.
Is pretty much exactly that. And so Doomslayer using that move to defeat Chief kind of annoyed me, because he could have done literally anything else.
So you think,
So
even
using
in general,
normal
his
mode-
speed should have been analyzed as better than what Death Battle did?
I do agree that his speed was off. I think Master Chief is faster than Doomslayer, and that is something Chief has done where he's caught the rocket and outran that stuff before. I just think it was really dumb for Slayer to use that move against him.
Okay, well, we'll get more into that kind of discussion later in the analysis and conclusion and such, but okay, very fair point. And Sack, how about you? What did you think about the animation?
I kind of shared the same view as Nemesis, where as soon as I heard DevilArtemis was animating it, I was a little bit skeptical, even though I did enjoy some of his latest work, like Bardock vs. Omni-Man and Kratos vs. Asura. I was still a little bit on the fence because I thought the animation was going to have a little bit of jank, even though I'm not someone that personally minds that. But as soon as I heard that he was going to have some assistants, like some other animators working on it, like one that I'm pretty sure worked on Goku vs. Superman 3, I was a lot more optimistic for that. And the final product, I gotta say, I do enjoy quite a bit. It's not that janky. The lighting and the backgrounds and just the effects in general look really cool, albeit nothing too grand or spectacular. I loved the rocket scene.
Okay.
I know y'all just got done talking about how you felt it was unnecessary. It looked kind of off. I am somebody that enjoys my death battles. I like the kind of goofiness that scenes like that can give. And
Sure.
with Doomslayer just blitzing past Master Chief to catch the rocket, it gave me huge "Where's Omni-Man?" vibes. It was just so funny to me. I enjoy, I love when Death Battle does silly shots like that.
Yeah, okay.
The Lore Man shot, the I can't really think of any other prime examples right
I
now.
know
But
a
my
lot of
point is,
people
like,
don't like the Lore Man shot, though. A lot of people think, like, that doesn't feel like Kratos. So you might be a little alone on that, but I'm glad you're sharing how you feel.
I just love silly, and that was very silly. And animation gets like a B+ from me.
Okay, cool.
Good job.
Yeah, no, I think those are totally fair. And yes, I do think it is important to note that, well, one thing, DevilArtemis, I believe, at least at a time, was contracted to do all of the 3D death battles in, like, the foreseeable future. Or I think at the time it was for season 11, but I still think, like, as far as the Kickstarter goes, DevilArtemis is doing all the 3D episodes. But it is important to note that for all of them, he is now getting help as well. He did not get help for Kratos versus Asura. I don't believe anyone helped him for Omni-Man versus Bardock either, but he is getting assistance for all of his episodes, including Master Chief versus Doomslayer. And that honestly makes a lot of sense given the time frame that they had to make this episode, because I don't know about you guys, but it definitely felt like this came a lot quicker than it should have, just based on when they knew that they were doing this episode. So the fact that Devil got help, I definitely think makes a lot of sense.
I think DevilArtemis is a good animator. He has like a few projects that don't really hold up to some of his best work, but I think all around he does good alone, but even better with collaborative efforts.
Yeah, I would agree. And as far as the general pacing of the animation goes, I will say that I do think when they get to Hell, the animation does level up substantially. It's not that, the beginning was bad or anything, but I did find it kind of repetitive. Like, they tried to cycle through as many different weapons as they could, but a lot of it kind of just boiled down to them being in this very, like, enclosed room where they'll clash, and then they'll use some long-range weapons, and then they'll clash again, and there wasn't a lot of variety in that. But then when they get to Hell, it's like they start focusing on fewer weapons in quantity, but they start doing more things. Like, you have Doom Guy, going after the rocket, and you have them fighting the demons, which, by the way, I will say that as far as the characters teaming up to fight something else, because we've seen that in, like, Black Panther versus Batman and Leon versus Frank, but I think this is, to date, the best use of that. Because the demons looked super cool, and the choreography was pretty cool. It didn't last too long. So I'm really happy with that. I think that once they get to Hell, the pacing overall gets better. I do think, yeah, there maybe was some jank here and there, but nothing that ruined it for me. Now, I do want to ask you guys about the death, because I've heard a lot of people that are unhappy about the way that Master Chief died. Does anyone have any specific opinions on that?
I have a lot.
You have a lot. Okay, feel free.
I do agree that Master Chief should have lost. I want to make that clear right from the start.
Okay.
But something that does bother me a lot is how he died. Kind of stood still for it and didn't react, which is completely out of character for someone who can regularly dodge bullets and catch rockets and all that. I also feel as though, like, Doomslayer's grapple thing, I don't remember what it's called, shouldn't have been able to pierce his armor. Yeah,
Okay.
that felt off to me. The Crucible Blade, I think, definitely should have been used for it, because I feel like it's one of the few things that could get through Chief's armor. But again, him just standing still for that really bothered me.
Sometimes we just have to accept that what they show in the death battle animation doesn't always line up with how we think it would go, but at the end of the day, they're just trying to make something entertaining and something that they feel makes sense.
Which, yeah, and the whole standing still to get killed a lot happens a lot on this show.
Yeah, that's a fair point. Not to say it's good, but it does happen.
Definitely not good. The death was kinda out of character for Doomslayer, given how he values human life above all else. It being so over the top and brutal put a lot of people off. With that being said, though, I frankly don't really care.
Okay.
Because I thought it was badass.
I mean, there's always going to be that appeal. It's kind of hard to ignore when, it's an animation show. So that's totally fair. Here's kind of my stance on the death. So I understand why people are upset, because while tonally it fits for the Doom series, Master Chief is not a demon, and it doesn't really fit tonally for Halo. And I totally get that people, want Death Battle to give the characters more respectful deaths and all that, and treat the characters with respect, and they have been doing that, and I totally, respect that. I will say, though, that I don't see brutal kills on Death Battle in general as that big of a problem. Like, we used to get them so much more than we do now, and for me, having watched Death Battle for so long, I kind of just accept brutal kills as, like, a part of the show, just like how a character losing is part of the show. Like, people aren't gonna like that a character loses sometimes, but that's just something that's part of the show. For me, I see, like, really brutal deaths as, like, a staple of Death Battle still. I also believe that a very brutal death does not automatically equate to disrespect. I think some people will really disagree with that, but I personally don't think that those two have to be, correlated with each other. And I'll be honest, like, it could have been so much worse. Like, it's to the point where if they toned it down too much, it wouldn't have felt appropriate to Doomslayer. Because yes, Master Chief is not a demon, he is a human, but if Doomslayer is trying to kill somebody, even if you want to make the argument that he would not try to kill a human, this is a death battle where he has to try to kill his opponent. If Doomslayer is trying to kill you, he's not going to do that shit lightly, So I kind of feel like, yes, maybe they could have handled it a little better, but I really don't have an issue because I see it as a part of Death Battle, and, there is kind of a tonal clash with Halo and Doom, so, like, how do you meet in the middle, So yeah, I can totally understand some people having issues. Again, though, just brutal deaths in general don't bother me that much on Death Battle. They're trying to be more respectful to the characters, and I still appreciate that desire, the want to do that.
I did absolutely enjoy that first-person shot from Chief whenever he was getting maimed. It's something that I don't think Death Battle has really done before, and if they have, it's at least been a long time since then. So I thought it was definitely unique. Whether it's out of character or not, I can't really comment on because I'm not the biggest Doomslayer or Master Chief fan, but I will say I do agree with Nemesis on the sentiment that regardless, it was pretty badass.
Okay, fair enough. I think that's totally fair. Yes, I did want to bring that up too, that sometimes they do POV stuff, but, like, not really, like, to this level of intensity. Like, there was that one shot, like, the one POV shot of, like, Jason Voorhees at the beginning of Jason versus Michael, but, like, that could have been any shot, But for this, it's like, yeah, they're really showing, like, oh yeah, this is Chief, this is what he sees. He sees Doomslayer, So yeah, I think that was pretty cool. And anything else I can say, I think all the voice actors did a good job. Obviously, there wasn't that much speaking in the episode, especially on, Doomslayer's side, but I still think all the voice actors did a good job for what they had. I thought the set pieces looked good. I thought Hell looked really good and definitely more detailed than what was shown in Ghost Rider versus Spawn, which I really appreciated. So yeah, just generally speaking, I do think it was a very well-rounded animation. Wouldn't say it's the best thing that DevilArtemis has ever done, but I am happy that he's just not getting shit on for it again just because it wasn't up to some people's standards.
And also the track. We gotta talk about that.
Oh yeah, Halo to Hell, that one, yeah, it's pretty good.
I feel like it's one of those tracks where it works a lot better in the animation than as its own. Like, I'm not saying, like, it is a really good track on its own. I love, like, the tribal, like, orchestral feel that it has. Mm-hmm. Again, like, I feel like it's one of those that works a lot better in the animation than, like, just listening to it on its own.
I have listened to it on its own a few times now, just again to prepare for this, and I will say it has been growing on me a little bit. I do like the fan choir coming back for this, because the last time we saw them, I believe, was Fireborn. So at that point, that's ancient. So it's really great to see the fan choir come back, and I do think, yeah, the choir sections, for lack of a better phrase, I do think that's the best part of that track. It is very nice to listen to, and at some points there's like a technological feel to it, which again is obviously very appropriate for these characters. So it is definitely an appropriate track. It does work really well when paired with the animation. It's definitely not a track I would listen to like on repeat like some of the tracks that Death Battle does, but I still think very appropriately done for this episode.
Yeah, I agree. And they brought on some Doom Eternal musicians for it, and yeah, you can definitely hear it in those sections.
Right.
When they went, Yeah, I felt that in my soul.
Jesus Christ. Yeah, thank you, Zach. But now I think we can move into the analysis and writing. So this isn't necessarily the verdict yet. We're going to get to that next. But this is more like, what you thought about the writing, what you thought about the editing, just all the ways that the analyses were constructed.
For Master Chiefs, I can't comment too much, but from what I saw, and yeah, it was pretty decent enough. I do think it's not as good as, say, any of the other analysis this year.
Okay.
It was overall, I think, enjoyable. I don't know how accurate everything was. As for Doomslayer's analysis, I will comment it was very long feeling to me for some reason.
Okay.
Chiefs felt very short. Slayer, I think they did a fine job with him. They went over all the cool stuff, all the weapons, the story. I will say the YouTube's plugin was kind of weird.
Hilarious.
I don't think they needed to do it as often as they did. They did it at the beginning, they did it at the end, but like doing it in the analysis segment is like, okay guys, like I already pre-ordered it.
I already bought it. I don't need to know about it again.
Yeah.
Overall, I think the analysis were decent. I noticed that they went for a more hell yeah vibe for both of them.
Yeah.
Which I think is appropriate for this type of episode.
Sure. And you say that Master Chiefs felt shorter and, so was there anything maybe that you were expecting from that or just to have it be a little longer maybe? Like, or was there anything that stuck out to you that's like, oh, like it should have had this, but it didn't?
It just felt too short is all I'm saying. I don't know if there should have been more. I can't comment on that. But yeah, it just felt way shorter in comparison to, say, Doomslayers.
Okay, I got you.
It was definitely way too short. It didn't go over all of his strength or his powers. Yeah, I feel like they just kind of skimmed through it to get the bare minimum and then went all out for Doomslayer. I'm a huge fan of both. Of course, Doomslayer is stronger and he's always going to win, but they really downplayed Chief for that part, I think.
Okay, well, I'm sorry to hear that. I mean, I will say I definitely did kind of get that impression as well, that it did feel like there was more they could have gone over for Chief, just in quantity. With Doomslayer, I do think his analysis was very well written. And for both of the characters, I do think they spent the proper amount of time on, say, like, the weapons. Because it's very easy to, like, go into their versatility and just, like, not stop. Because they just have so much versatility. Like, you can really pick and choose how much time you spend on that. But I do think they allocated the proper amount of time for their versatility for both characters. But I do think, yeah, for Master Chief himself, I can see the argument being made that, yeah, like they should have just gone over more for what he personally can do.
I think they did a pretty decent job giving both characters like the rundown, like their story, like what makes them unique, what like drives them, what's their purpose, what's the point of it all. I thought the U2's ad in the middle of Doomslayer's analysis was hilarious.
Okay.
I know a lot of people may not like really be a big fan of just how much it breaks the pace.
Honestly, Zach, it sounds like you're getting a lot of enjoyment out of the things that maybe other people didn't enjoy as much. So like, more power to you for that. Honestly, that's great.
I watch Death Battle very casually. I'm not really watching it to like nitpick or like try to find things that are flawed or wrong with any of the episodes. Like, it's a web show. It's not something that like, of course it's a web show with like very professional people and like some really talented people working on it as well, but it's not something I'm really going to like be bothered by if there's something in the episode that, say, most people don't like. I personally find enjoyment out of what I can with the episode, and like there are some things about a few episodes that I don't like. That's a given.
Yeah.
Most notably when my favorite character loses, but
right, because they're wrong when that happens, right? All the time.
Exactly, they're wrong when that happens. Probably some things that could have been either explained better or explained differently, but again, like I can't really comment on that because I don't know much about either.
I do definitely agree with Nemesis, with the whole hell yeah vibe and personality, because I do definitely think, yeah, they were prioritizing that, and I think they did it pretty decently. The jokes definitely weren't at the forefront this time, but again, I think that was more in service of just showing how cool the characters are, and I do think that's how Death Battle humor should operate, where it's like, it's more subtle, or they're letting the craziness of the characters speak for themselves. I've talked about this in previous episodes as well, but I think that is the best way to do Death Battle humor, because sometimes I find that when they try to force it, it just doesn't really work. So, if they're doing it more subtly, or or stuff like that. I do think that is better. The editing this time did not blow me away like the editing of previous episodes have, although I do think there is a good reason for that, because for the static visual elements that they use, like comic panels and manga panels, they really want to make sure that that stuff looks very good, so that I like movement to it or certain effects and all of that. And that's sometimes where I think the best editing comes from. But of course, a lot of that doesn't really apply to Master Chief and Doomslayer, a little bit, but not a lot. So they can really just show, you know, clips from video games or TV shows or whatever. You know, TV show obviously in reference to Halo. So a lot of that kind of already moves, so they don't need to go above and beyond with the visual editing. But of course, when you have Ghost Rider versus Spawn and Shigaraki versus Mahito right before this one, it does kind of stand out as like, oh yeah, this one doesn't have as much over-the-top editing, but I still think it's edited very well, and again, they don't have a lot of static imagery that they need to use that over-the-top editing for, so I think it's perfectly fine. Now, in terms of lore, because I hate to bring it back to lore, but I do kind of want to rant a little bit. So if you guys have seen this podcast before or seen my channel before, you'll know my opinions on lore, and obviously you'll know Death Battle's opinions on lore and all of that. However, there were literally people in this community that were surprised that Death Battle was using lore for Doomslayer. You can believe that they should not use lore. I will disagree with you, but you can believe that. I think that's totally fair. You know, I respect your opinion on that. But if you're surprised that Death Battle is using lore for characters after Kratos versus Asura and Skyrim versus Dark Souls, then what that tells me is that you decide when or when to not use lore based on your preferences surrounding characters. And for the last fucking time, that is not how that works. You don't get to pick and choose when to use lore for characters. You either use it for all of them or you use it for none of them. It's like scaling. You either use scaling for characters or you don't, and Death Battle has decided to use lore. To just see that makes me think that people don't get it yet. They don't understand that it's just something that is part of the characters, and you can't pick and choose for the characters that you prefer. And for anyone who's saying, well, no, you can't use lore for Doomslayer to make it more fair, no, that's not how it works either, because Death Battle is not just comparing the characters and saying who would win in a fight. They're also trying to be a genuinely good source of information for the characters in a vacuum, regardless of them being compared to each other. To say that you should arbitrarily misrepresent a character to make the debate better, I couldn't disagree with that more. Like, to me, that's just ridiculous.
Yeah, definitely. With lore being said, though, there was very little use of it in Doomslayer's analysis.
That's another thing I was going to say, that it, again, kind of like the kill shot, it could have been so much worse, but people are just weirded out that it's there in the first place. Like, I don't even know what to say at that point.
Basically, I feel like what some people go into the mindset of lore with, like, if it didn't happen visually, it didn't happen at all.
Yeah, and of course, you know, sometimes that holds up. It depends on if you're looking at, like, a statement made by a character in universe, because they could be wrong or they could be exaggerating or whatever the hell. But if you're looking at official lore that has been published into the game or whatever you're looking at, then that's just official material. That is what is objectively confirmed to be true for the character. I think a lot of people put too big of an emphasis on how they consume the media, because analyzing a character and what they are confirmed to do, it doesn't matter your personal relationship with the medium. It doesn't matter what you perceive, it matters what is true. So if it's true and it happened, then it's fair to use. Plain and simple.
Yeah, very much so.
Alright, so talking about the outcome and the reasoning, Are we done?
I disagree with it completely. Master Chief should have absolutely annihilated.
What do you mean? He did win.
Right, yeah, you know, he did.
Oh, yeah, no, it was the last one I watched. It was the original, not the remake, my bad. Yeah, the original they got wrong.
For the old fight, I feel like it worked, because at the time, that was before the newer Doom games, right?
Yeah.
Doom Slayer, or Doom Guy, I guess, at the time, wasn't like this all-powerful god-level character, and I feel like he is someone that Master Chief could have beaten. The way that Chief did beat him makes sense. I know there was complaints about the animation, but going frame by frame, which I did, he does pop down his shield before he gets hit by the big blast, so I think that makes sense. Second fight, I do agree with Chief losing. In terms of the reasoning, Doomslayer's a badass and he kills pretty much everyone he fights. That works.
Okay.
They definitely skewed a few things, like the stats comparison. They were like very much lower numbers because, again, Slayer didn't get much lore scaling. At most, he was put at the Titan levels where he can take down Titans, which that's the only piece of lore scaling, to my knowledge, they used.
Or at least heavily, yeah. There might have been other stuff in like the black boxes or, you know, listed on the side or whatever, but at least like explicitly made a point of, then yeah.
But overall, they did do him punching the metal blocks around and comparing that to Chief flipping the tank. I agree with Danny. I think Chief should have been a bit faster because I feel like the speed feat was just not good.
Okay.
I'm sure he's gone faster than that.
Yeah, I mean, the number did seem a little low to me. I do think they could have gone a little further as far as, like, the upper limits for both of the characters, and that's not really a new thing for Death Battle. Like, there are times where it feels like they kind of just cherry-pick the feats that they want to bring attention to, and I understand that some of it is because they want to make it easy to understand for newly acquainted viewers, for the people that don't know Death Battle very well or don't know the series very well, but there are some instances where it's like, really? Like, those are the biggest numbers you could have used that was easy to understand? Like, that doesn't seem very true. So yeah, no, I totally get that. And yeah, as far as the lore stuff, like, I know people are gonna hate me for saying this, but like, kind of like what I was saying before about how Death Battle should try to represent the characters accurately, I would not have hated if they went further into the lore stuff for Doomslayer. Yes, it would have shown how much of a stomp it was even more, but again, you're trying to accurately represent the characters, not trying to fabricate a close fight. If it is a close fight, then that's great, but if it's not a close fight, and if it's something that you guys voted for, then they should try to portray the characters accurately, you know, both in characterization, but also how strong the characters are. And I know there were some people that were trying to find, like, a way for Master Chief to win, thinking, like, this fight has to be worth it to be done, so Master Chief must have a way to win. But again, you guys are the ones that voted for it, so it's not like Death Battle decided to do it because they found some interesting stuff to talk about. No, you guys voted for it, so there's nothing left to talk about.
Yeah, you guys did this. It's your fault.
Regards to the Arsenal, it was a decent enough win con for Doomslayer. Like, they did bring up the fact that he didn't have nearly as much versatile options as Chief, but overall had the stronger weaponry.
I mean, versatility is a good advantage to have, but it really only helps if it, like, actively provides counters, or, you know, if it is strong enough to overcome the other character's durability. Like, you could have literally a million powers, but if not a single one can overcome the opponent's durability, the versatility means squat, right? So, yes, both of them are very versatile. Master Chief is more versatile, but the versatility itself does not provide enough win cons or enough overall advantages to circumvent, you know, the shot-for-shot power advantage that Doomslayer has.
Right.
The analysis, at least in comparison to like some of the other episodes we've gotten earlier this year, like, yes, while they did explain it decently, I feel like they could have gone into a lot more detail. Like, I just wish the post-analysis was a little bit longer, if that makes sense.
Yes, I do think that, because again, they're trying to get an average of, like, paying proper respect to both characters, but also being accurate in comparing the two. And yes, I do think a longer conclusion would have helped with that second part, because I don't think it was perfect, but, you know, it's still serviceable. Like, Death Battle has done things of very similar quality before, so I'm not saying, you know, it's surprising, but you know, you can see it when you can see it, right? Like, if they can do a little better. So I do think, yes, they could have made things a little longer to maybe make things a little more accurate as far as the comparison goes. I will say that I do not think that AI deserves to be a category in this conclusion. And I understand, this is very nitpicky. I understand that they want to give Master Chief something, and I definitely think AI should have been talked about, but like as part of the versatility or as part of the Arsenal category, as opposed to giving it its own category. Because Death Battle doing this category thing, they're doing the categories that are most representative of what the fight is. Because usually I don't like it when versus debate channels go categorically, because I think it just removes a lot of necessary context. But when Death Battle does, like, changes the categories based on what the matchup is, I think that's a good way of doing it. However, AI is not one of the most representative aspects of this debate. They even said in a black box, essentially, that the AI advantage would be negligible. So they're literally just doing it to throw Chief a bone, and it's like, I don't think you should be doing that. I sound like an asshole to the Halo fans, basically saying, like, they should have talked more about Doomslayer's lore, they shouldn't have given Master Chief, like, a whole advantage for AI, but, like, you can't put AI as an advantage on the same level of something like physical stats in this case, because it just does not help in that same way.
Yeah, they wanted to make it seem fair.
So in terms of AI, the AI does give Chief a really big advantage, but Death Battle didn't cover that. A lot of Spartans in Halo have smart AI in their suit, and what that does is it improves their reflexes, it improves their strength. The AI can assist them in dozens of ways that Death Battle didn't touch at all, and I feel like with the AI in Chief's suit, it does balance out the fight a lot more, but not in the way they did it. Cortana could have been used to warn Chief about incoming attacks, or increase his reaction time or strength, put more power into the suit. Stuff that he could have probably used to get the upper hand for a while.
Experience, however, I think a lot of people are going to have differing opinions on this.
I think it could have been a tie, personally, but I don't mind that they gave it to Doomslayer.
I think the reason for why they gave it to Doomslayer was valid enough. I do think it should have been somewhat of a tie.
I mean, it's kind of like a quantity versus quality argument, right? Like, I do think that, yes, as far as the variety of experience, Master Chief definitely has that. With just how much Doomslayer had been fighting, and if he's fighting characters that realistically, again, according to the lore, are stronger than Master Chief, then it kind of just means that he has more time fighting stronger opponents. Like, again, I don't mind that they gave it to Doomslayer for that reasoning. I think if they wanted to make it a tie, that would have been okay with me, but I don't mind that they went that route.
It depends on what kind of experience it is. Like,
yeah,
Chief takes it in fighting variety, and Slayer just takes it in fighting for time.
And the one last thing I will say about this conclusion is that there is kind of, sort of, a golden tree moment. Do you guys know what I mean when I say golden tree?
Sorta.
Okay.
I think I know where this is going.
So a golden tree moment in Death Battle is where they imply something or straight up say something in the analysis that turns out to be almost completely untrue or just non-applicable in the conclusion because they were explicitly holding things back to make it seem closer just for the sake of making it seem closer. So the golden tree is when they heavily imply that Beast in Beast vs. Goliath lifted a 60-ton tree, and then in the conclusion they say, oh wait, no, we didn't lift it all off the ground. And it's like, well, come on, like if we've never read that comic before, how are we supposed to know the difference? Like, you're just showing us one comic panel. That's kind of like where that terminology comes from. So what happens here in this is that they talk about Master Chief's hard light shield, and then they talk about how a lot of hard light was able to protect him from 30 megatons. And as I'm watching this, I'm thinking like, oh, so that means his shield should also be capable of doing similar things. And technically they do say in the analyses that, you know, by tapping into a Forerunner ship that he was on with Cortana doing that or whatever, they do technically bring that up in the pre-analysis, but they don't say that in a way that implies that she was making the hard light itself stronger. If anything, it just implies that that's how he got a hold of that hard light. It doesn't imply that, oh yeah, the hard light gets stronger because Cortana is tapping into the Forerunner ship. Like, we don't get that at all. So there were people in my reaction comment section that was saying, oh no, yes, it was brought up in the analysis for Master Chief, and technically, yes, it was, but not in a way that implies that it's not something that is replicatable with his own hard light shield. I don't know if that really bothers anybody, but to me, I kind of thought Death Battle was past doing stuff like that.
You call it golden tree, I call it gaslighting.
Okay, sure, yes, but no, that's fair. I just like reference, because the golden tree from Beast vs. Goliath is where this kind of thing started, and we've seen other instances like this before, but not for a very long time. But the golden tree is just like infamous at this point,
yeah.
in that way, you know, for this kind of script writing.
overall, I enjoyed what we got. I feel like they really downplayed both characters. They focused so hard on making it close that they kind of disrespected the characters in their own stats way, where it feels like they're not working at their peak.
Yeah, there is more than one way to represent a character properly. Like, you can look at it from a characterization perspective, you can look at it from an analysis perspective, and yeah, like I said, it's just unfortunate when it's really easy to tell when they could have talked about more. And again, prioritize being accurate over the actual comparison. I know not everyone will agree with that because they look at Death Battle specifically for the comparison and trying to make it an interesting comparison, but I just don't think you should be arbitrarily limiting characters for that reason. You should be trying to portray them as best as possible in every way. Generally, this is definitely not my favorite rematch episode. Again, aside from my qualms against this idea as a rematch, just production-wise, it's still not my favorite rematch episode. That definitely is the new Goku versus Superman. To me, I see this more on like the same level as like Link versus Cloud. I probably still like Link versus Cloud a little more, but I see it more on that level personally. And I don't think we needed this episode. I still think there could have been other cooler rematch ideas to do instead, but it still had its intended job, and I think it did the intended job decently well. Could have gone further as far as, trying to get an updated analysis, like a really, really, really good analysis, but, it's okay. Overall, this feels like, an average or above average episode of what we usually see for modern Death Battle. And of course, that still means it's good. It just doesn't, blow me away like some of the other episodes have. It has some cracks here and there, but, it's still a fun time. As Zach was saying, there's still a lot of fun elements to it, a lot of wacky stuff. I still think they did some of what they tried to do really well, others not as much, but it's still a good production overall. Anyway, next time, let's talk about the next time. I really want to talk about the next time. Simone the Digger versus Kyle Rayner. Yeah, who's excited for that one?
I streamed during the watch party.
Yeah.
I can confirm he did. He actually did.
To be fair, I probably would have had a huge reaction to it as well. This is one of my most wanted Death Battles for a very long time. The fact that we already knew we were getting it, that my hype has kind of reached its pinnacle already, although it was still surprising that we're getting this episode as quickly as we are, because like Master Chief versus Doomslayer, I expected it to come much later than it's actually coming, but yeah, we're getting it next, and it's insane to think that this huge matchup that, everybody has been talking about for so long, we're actually gonna see it. It's very surreal.
Yeah, it is really awesome.
Well, hopefully it's awesome. We'll see what happens, but I have faith in the team.
I really hope it's awesome.
I have faith in the team. I think they understand how big this is to a lot of the hardcore fans.
I genuinely wish I had more to say about it. I'm not really a big anime or comic book fan, but from everything I've heard about the matchup, and especially Will of the Drill, I'm pretty excited.
Right. Yeah, I've listened to Will of the Drill every day since it got announced.
It's awesome.
I think it's going to be really good, especially I think it's going to be sprites with hand-drawn shots, and I think the hand-drawn shots are going to be the big cosmic transformations and stuff.
I need a hand-drawn Giga Drill break.
Yeah, the climax of this I think is going to be something unlike we've ever seen before. I think my only concerns literally with this happening is living up to the hype, because at this point the hype is, insane.
It's reached.
But also the potential DC backlash. I try to avoid, stupid stuff like that in the community, but sometimes it's just unavoidable, especially for someone like me who's more than a little ingrained in this community at this point. Sometimes it's just, you can't avoid it. But other than that, I am just so excited for this, seeing what they can put together. I'm still hoping they gave themselves enough time to make everything as good as they could have. But again, with Master Chief versus Doomslayer, at least as far as the animation goes, they definitely did give themselves enough time. They didn't rush anything in that way, so really hoping this is a very similar instance. But I also do expect it to be, really over the top, so we'll see how they do with that.
I'm more excited for the track than, about anything, really. I'm not expecting it to sound anything like Will of the Drill, but I do think they are going to use some, motifs from it.
I'm sure, yeah, but I'm also not sure how they're going to top Will of the Drill. I have faith in in the composers and all that, but like Will of the Drill at this point is just legendary. I think a lot of people are just not going to like it as much just for the fact that it's not literally Will of the Drill. And I am hoping that they go more in detail for like the exact capabilities and cosmologies and stuff, because like I said, even in this review, sometimes they really like to prioritize what is easy for people to understand. I do not think you can do that this time though, because there is so much individual shit that, you know, is so important to who wins or what the comparison is like, that I think they need to go in detail for that stuff. Otherwise, it might not make a lot of sense. You know, their reasoning might not really hold up on its own. I think they really need to go in detail with that stuff.
I'm gonna be so for real right now. I don't know who either of them are.
Sure, okay, that's fine. If you only know like the basics of DC, I don't expect anyone to know who Kyle is. And Gurren Lagann, yeah, it's a very popular anime, but you kind of need to be in the anime space, or at least like 1 or 2 layers deep in the anime space to like, you know what it is. So I think that makes sense. I think that's fine.
The only thing I've got from this the entire time was that I've been saying Gurren Lagann wrong the entire time.
Well, to be fair, I do think there are some people who pronounce it a little differently, so I don't blame you for that. But yeah, I am also curious how the rest of the Kickstarter is going to go now, because I thought they were basically just going to alternate between Kickstarter matchup and unrevealed matchup, but now it seems very clear that they are overall prioritizing the Kickstarter matchups. And not to say that all the next ones are going to be Kickstarter matchups, but I definitely think we're going to see fewer surprises this year than we expected. And then by the time we get to 2026, we'll either have like 1 or 2 Kickstarter matchups left at most, and then, you know, for the rest of 2026, it'll be almost complete surprises. So I'm looking forward to seeing how that goes, but it's definitely not really what I was expecting, at least at the beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought we'd be getting Simone versus Kyle like a lot later. Like, honestly, I thought it was going to be like the last episode of the year. But
I thought, if anything, it was going to be after Ash versus Yugi, which, by the way, you know, Ash versus Yugi is no longer episode 200. They confirmed that on the Fireside chat. Yeah, which personally, I kind of have mixed feelings on that, because I understand that they're trying to make it the best they possibly can make it, and if they need to push it back a little bit, I totally understand. But I also kind of have like a very big aversion to promising something without being sure that you can deliver on it. Like, it would have been very easy for them to just say Ash versus Yugi and not put episode 200. But the fact that they did say episode 200 makes me think that you kind of need to make sure that that's gonna be episode 200. Otherwise, just don't promise it. Like, I don't know. I just, that's kind of like a pet peeve of mine when studios or YouTube channels or whatever it is promise something that they evidently cannot deliver on, and they just didn't need to promise it in the first place. So that kind of peeves me a bit, but it's not the worst thing in the world. But yeah, I think that's basically everything I wanted to talk about for this episode and the next time. Thank you guys so much for being on the show. I appreciate it immensely. And thank you to everyone for listening. If you enjoyed this, be sure to give it a like, comment your comments down below, subscribe if you want to see more stuff like this. We do way more than just the podcast. We have predictions, reactions, a bunch of other shit. So, you know, if you want to stick around and see what's around, yeah, I'd appreciate that a lot. And of course, you can join the Discord server. We get all of these guests from the Discord server. It's also just a fun time. So if you want to join, the link is down below. So is the Blue Sky account, and also a bunch of other stuff that you can check out. But yeah, that's all I got to say. Any final words from anybody?
Cocaine Bear versus Meth Gator 2026.
2026, bro. Let's get it for 2025, bro. What are you talking about?
Yeah, what are you talking about?
Oh yeah, we gotta have it be the final episode of the year. Come on, Death Battle, make it happen.
I work for Death Battle, so I'll make sure to get them to do it. Don't worry.
Hell yeah.
All right. Thank you guys so much for listening, and that is a wrap. Have a good night.
I love the part where Doomslayer used that grapple gun on Master Chief, but then Master Chief turned it around. He punched Doomslayer in the face, took the blade out of his hand, stabbed and blew him up.
I was about to say, what the hell are you talking about?
A lot happens in that death.
Okay.